Do not be alarmed. I didn't put up the blackout curtains today because I didn't feel like it. So you're getting daytime Brett today for the first time all season. EJ, we are talking about awful teams today. We're taking a little bit of a break from talking about the best of the best. We're going to talk about some of the worst, unfortunately. These are teams that we have not mentioned in a while for obvious reasons, but we're going over the Raiders, the Browns, the Saints, and the Titans today. We're going to talk about what's broken, which is almost everything, and how to fix it, which might take a couple years. Before we get going, EJ, how are you?
Good. Depending on the team, you're correct. It might be more than a 1 year process, but some of these teams have, I don't want to say hidden gems, but things that are working pretty well. And as always, they're getting lost in the mess with their overall results and, quite frankly, lousy play. But we'll talk about it. And this is, again, what's broken, what we think they need to fix it, and then how we would prioritize it if we were the GMs.
Without further ado, Neil, roll the intro. Welcome to the Bootleg Football Podcast. I'm Brett Coleman. That's EJ Snyder. We're talking about terrible teams today. And the first one on the docket is technically the least terrible on the list. They're all relatively the same, but at least as far as draft order, they're the quote-unquote highest ranked team we're going to talk about today, and that's the Las Vegas Raiders. We were, I don't want to say like super high on the Raiders going into the year, but we were definitely positive, like definitely on the positive end of the spectrum. We had some concerns, but even with our concerns, everything has gone so much worse than I thought it would. Pete Carroll, unfortunately, hasn't worked out so far. The Ashton Jeanty situation, I mean, Jeanty's trying as best he can, but the offensive line hasn't been great in front of him. And again, they've been banged up. I get that. But even when the offensive line was healthy, they were really struggling to run block, which has just been kind of the story of the Raiders for years at this point. So he hasn't really had a whole lot of space to work with. And we've seen that in his production where he is just dragging people to get whatever yards he can. Geno has been, if not a disaster adjacent, I would say. And they don't really have any weapons outside that really scare you that much either. You know, we like Jack Besh as like a long-term prospect, but they don't have a whole lot, especially Sans Jacoby Myers, to like really scare a defense either. So the offense has just kind of taken a nosedive the entire season. The defense has done what it can, but sometimes it just feels like Max Crosby versus the world out there. So it's a severely undergunned team, a lot more undergunned than I thought they were going into the year. And at this point, really the only thing that gives me positivity about the situation is that I'm looking at 2026 when they have a ton of money, like specifically before we even get to cuts and restructures. They're projected to have $107 million in cap space. So that'll go up even now between now and March. That'll go up even more. They have $107 million in cap space and probably going to have high picks as well. So like that gives me hope for a relatively, well, I don't want to say quick rebuild, but they have assets to potentially turn this around in 2026. But even then, like the rot goes a lot deeper into the tree than I thought it did.
Problem is they have a lot of expensive holes, and that is always difficult to fix. If you are a team that has multiple holes, but they can be addressed for lower cap space, lesser prices in free agency, or lower draft capital, you're in a better spot. The problem with the Vegas Raiders is once the offensive line kind of folded, we got to see everything else. We got to see behind the curtain, and it wasn't very pretty. So you could argue they need 2, possibly 3 new offensive linemen. The quarterback situation, you mentioned it with Geno. We both thought he'd be better. Would he be better with better protection? I think he would, maybe, but with this particular crew, that is not great. We just got done saying that. Among all quarterbacks with 50 dropbacks, he is 9th worst in pressure to sack percentage, 23%. He's tied for 13th worst in turnover worthy play percentage. He's 20th in adjusted completion percentage. He's 32nd last in NFL passer rating. This is where it gets gross. 38th in big time throw percentage, which means guys that have come in relief are better than him, and 37th in average depth of target. It's also his year 35 season, or age 35 season. Not a great combination, but you're a bit between a rock and a hard place here. You've paid him a bunch of money. Again, that's not long-term money, but if you're down on picks and it's not looking like it's going to be a great quarterback class, maybe you try and surround him, much like the argument we've made for other teams. Build the line first, build the supporting cast, then go get the quarterback. Maybe you just sort of do that out of necessity and hope that Geno rebounds with a better offensive line in front of him. I think that's possible. You mentioned wide receiver. I'm just going to ask you, did Jack Bech kill somebody?
What does he got to do to get snaps even?
He has been targeted 10 total times in 8 games that he's played. That, for this wide receiver core, is criminal negligence. There are other wide receiver cores. Look, if he played in Tampa or he played, even in Seattle or something like that, I'd get it. Even LA, okay, fine. He's not getting that many snaps because there's plenty of talent in front of him. You look at the Raiders depth chart even before Jacoby left and you go, Jack Bech has been targeted 10 times. Why did you pick him if you're going to throw it to him basically one time a game? So the running back, I think Jeanty will be fine when he gets a little bit of blocking, any blocking. Obviously, they're good at tight end. On defense, you talked about it. It's Max Crosby. I really think the front four are good and sound. Inside linebacker needs, I'll just say, some talent. And the secondary needs multiple talent infusions. Safety is the glaring need in their secondary. They also need help at nickel, and they could use an outside cornerback. Again, a very expensive list of positions. So we start talking about all these needs, and again, they do have money. They've got some draft picks, but they don't have a preponderance of draft picks. So can it all be fixed in 1 year? And my answer is, if you think Geno's not the answer, absolutely not. Even if you think he's the answer for 1 year, probably not. It's just too many positions that they don't have that have been exposed this year that you really look at and go, they're not going to get competitive until that changes.
I feel like at this point, we just have to kind of acknowledge that Geno is not going to be there next year. They cannot run this back. Again, we were excited about it. Geno's played really well in the past. Last year, I think he played better than what his numbers suggested last year, but obviously last year was a down year relative to even what he did earlier in Seattle. And so we're like, okay, maybe we can get a bounce back here in Vegas, and it just got even worse. And sometimes it just happens when an NFL player hits their mid-30s and they just don't got it anymore. I don't feel like he's got it anymore. So at this point, the decision that I struggle with is, what do you address first? Let's say they end up with a top 2 pick, right? And right now they're at 4th, I think, yeah?
They are currently at 6th as of this week.
So let's just assume that things are going to continue to go poorly for them, and they're going to end up with a top 2 pick, which puts them in range to get either Ty Simpson or Fernando Mendoza, who are likely going to be the top 2 quarterbacks in this class. I'd be surprised if they're not. So the question you have to ask yourself is, what do we do first? Do we take the quarterback first while acknowledging that the offensive line still needs work and that the young running back we just took in the top 10 the previous year probably is not going to be able to help out that young quarterback by keeping him on schedule without the offensive line improving? Because if he couldn't do it this year, he's probably not going to be able to do it next year. Or do we try to go the route where we invest in the offensive line first? We really let Ashton Jeanty be the identity of the offense. And I'm not saying we bring back Geno, but we try to hunt for a different quarterback option elsewhere to get us through 2026. And maybe we do what the Saints did. We throw a pick on day 2 just to mine for gold and see what we can get. Maybe Drew Aller, you take him on day 2, something like that, just to give us an option. But really, we're looking at that 2027 quarterback class, which we expect to be A, deeper, and B, also better at the top, potentially. And I struggle with which direction to go, because when you're in range to draft a quarterback, generally you should draft that quarterback if they're worth the pick. But at the same time, taking that young quarterback and putting them into a situation where their protection is going to be bad. Keep in mind the Raiders' offensive line this year on true dropback passes is the 4th worst offensive line in the entire NFL in terms of pressure rate allowed. Their interior trio is bottom 3 in pressure rate allowed. So it's like, okay, I'm going to take a young quarterback. I'm going to put him behind that line with my number one receiver being who exactly? I guess you can say Brock Bowers, sure. But as far as like outside vertical threats, who's going to be the guy who's not Brock Bowers who's going to win for me? And that's not exactly an appetizing situation for a young quarterback. And hell, they might not even have the same coaching staff next year. Who knows? So I struggle with that decision because it's almost like you're picking with your heart versus picking with your head. And I guess I have until April to come up with an answer on that. But right now, I'm like not 100% thinking take a quarterback here because it's like, take him to do what exactly?
Yeah, I don't think you can. I think that's too much to put on a rookie starter's plate. We all know that a rookie's first year is going to be rough. And typically, again, starters that are drafted up high are not drafted by teams that are complete. That's why they're drafting a quarterback up high. And they do have a rough first year, but it's a sliding scale of really, really rough enough that it damages them, or like, hey, you can get through it. And I look at, all the recent situations. I look at Drake May last year. It was pretty rough. Offensive line was not great. They go out and get Will Campbell, and he survived. I look at Cam Ward this year, and I'm like, ooh, you're doing the very best you can. Reminds me a lot of Ashton Genty in terms of, a skill position player doing everything he can, but it's just not a great situation. So how's that going to look next year? They've got their own work to do. We'll talk about them in a bit, but I would go offensive line, and then I might go O-line again. And
just make sure it's good. Yeah.
And just build it, because that'll help Ashton Genty. That'll help whoever you have at quarterback, and you're not going to have a high pick at quarterback at that point. So you can either go the placeholder mid-second or later quarterback, as we've seen many teams do. We're going to talk about, the Saints and what they're doing at quarterback. We're going to talk to Browns and what they're doing at quarterback. Or you go get a journeyman and you have them as a 2-year bridge. They are the starter next year, and they are playing probably, hopefully, half of the year after that, and you're handing it over mid-season after your rookie that you've drafted has either a year and a half or half a year under their belt, and a decent offensive line and threats and some weapons. If we're talking about 2 years from now when their first playing season would be, you could go get, pry Mac Jones away, right? Get a decent offensive line, be functional next year, fill some of the holes later on down on defense. Certainly you can get safeties in the 3rd round. Maybe you pick up a couple guards in the 3rd or 4th round. Like that could work. I could see that happening. But without that, I don't really care who you put behind him. Mac Jones, a rookie, like it doesn't matter. They're going to get smashed, and that's not going to help. So it feels like, because again, the positions we're talking about are expensive: quarterback, outside corner, alpha wide receiver. These are the 4 priciest positions on the field outside of edge, where they're good. So 4 out of the 5 priciest positions on the field, and you need them basically all. That's rugged. So I would just start with the offensive line, build from there, because you're going to get better results as you go. Not great results, mind you, but you're also going to protect your investment whenever you go get that quarterback.
Yeah, the only spot of the expensive ones that they really have taken care of is left tackle, but right tackle is also an expensive position, which they don't really have taken care of at the moment. So either way, let's just say tackle, that they need that. And so I see them as like a prime candidate for Spencer Fano, who we talked about on the Patreon only episode last week. We kind of dipped into some top prospects over on the Patreon. He was one of the ones we talked about. Caden Proctor, we also talked about. Again, these are not guys that are going to go in the top 5, but if we're talking about potentially either a trade down situation for them or a trade up from like a high second into the back end of the first round, these are tackles that you're looking at. The kid from Miami, Mauigoa, I believe is how you pronounce it. He's got a lot of fans. He's going to go in the first round. So like there are tackles in this. Iowa's got a kid, Dunker, as well, who's going to go probably in the top 40 picks or so. So like there are tackles available. They have to get one of them. Like they absolutely have to. They got greedy last year. They took a running back earlier than they probably should as far as the development arc of their franchise. That was something I brought up repeatedly. They probably wish they could go back and take Membo at this point, but they can't. But they need to get one now, or else or else you kind of run the risk of just wasting the first 2 years of Ashton Genty's contract. Like, why take him that early if you're not going to invest in the pieces that are going to pay off having a very high pick contract at running back, right? So they got to do it. Again, I'm not 100% in favor of taking a quarterback early at this point because I just feel like that's pissing into the wind. And overall, like, I don't think this is a team that's going to compete in 2026 either. It just feels like there's too many high impact positions that they don't have right now for me to think that they're going to be able to get out of this in one offseason. They got money and they got picks, but do you have confidence that they're going to be able to patch every single hole in 2 months? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. And if you look at their division being the key to getting yourself into the playoffs, they're clearly the worst team in their division. It's not close.
Oh, not even remotely close.
So are you gonna leapfrog 2 of those teams in one offseason from where you are right now? And I don't think it's likely. Is it possible? Sure, but it would be kind of the, miracle out of the heavens story, not an expected result. Now, 2 years from now, are you ready? If you've rebuilt the offensive line, you've got a couple of different options at quarterback, you've gone out and gotten yourself, a top wide receiver, a top corner, and fixed your secondary with mid-round pieces, fixed your interior offensive line with mid-round pieces. Okay, now we're talking about a fair fight. Before that, I don't think so.
We will get right back to the show in just a second, I promise. But first, we're coming up on the holiday season pretty quick here, and the best possible gift you could ever give to yourself is making sure you are healthy. That means having consistent annual checkups, making sure that anything that doesn't look normal or feel normal gets checked out, having a better nutritional regimen as well. And even though I myself already have a doctor that I really like, I have to assume that some of you listening and watching to this right now maybe don't have a doctor already. And if you happen to count yourself among that group, today's sponsor, ZocDoc, might be able to help you with that. On ZocDoc, you can find and book doctors in your area that fit your needs and preferences. It's free, both as an app and as a website, and you can search and book doctors in your network, of course. Anything from dental health to mental health, primary care, or urgent care. And appointments on ZocDoc can happen fast as well. If you need something, 24 to 48 hours out because it's a little bit more of a pressing issue, odds are you can probably find something in your area that quickly. Again, if I didn't already have a doctor that I happen to like a lot, ZocDoc is what I would use to find my new one. So if you want to check it out for yourself and see what they have to offer, go to ZocDoc.com/bootleg. That is ZocDoc.com/bootleg. Again, ZocDoc.com/bootleg. Our next team on the docket, the Cleveland Browns, are in a fairly similar situation, which is they need a quarterback desperately, even more desperately than Vegas does, if you can believe it.
Yes.
Dylan Gabriel, not the answer long term. That much is clear already. I'm usually in favor of giving young quarterbacks time. He's had enough time at this point. We're good. We know what the answer is on that. And then Shedeur Sanders, I did not have a high enough grade on Shedeur when he was a prospect anyway to make me think that they can just try him in 2026 and see if the other young quarterback on the team works. I still think they need to get one. But that being said, this is also a team that has a really bad offensive line situation, particularly at offensive tackle. If you're looking at pressures allowed, pressure percentage allowed, knockdown percentage allowed, like, it is not even remotely close. The Browns tackle group has been the worst in the entire NFL so far this year. The second highest pressure count allowed by any offensive tackle group in the NFL is 55. Again, these are on true dropbacks, not all dropbacks. So non-RPO, non-play action, non-screen, like actual dropback passes. The second worst tackle group in the NFL is the Saints at 55. The Browns are at 71. So we're talking orders of magnitude worse than the second worst team in the league. As far as pressure percentage allowed, again, the Bucs, because of their injuries that they've sustained this year repeatedly, they're the quote-unquote second worst at 20%. The Browns are at almost 27%. Like, that's ungodly terrible. So they need a tackle. 2 of them, honestly. Hell, 3 of them even. Just replace the whole unit. They need tackles, plural. They need quarterback. Running back is fine. Interior isn't like honestly, they can get by with their interior. Throw a day 2, day 3 pick at it to solidify it, but they're fine. As far as receiving weapons, again, not the worst in the league, but definitely could use upgrades there. And the defense, God bless them, they're trying their best. But with that kind of offense, what can you do, right? But it's another one of these teams where you're debating between quarterback and the guys tasked with protecting the quarterback. And even if you get a Ty Simpson or Fernando Mendoza in there, is it going to matter that much if they die? Like immediately, like Dillon Gabriel has been dying immediately. Like I struggle with this because I've seen what happens to young quarterbacks that are talented, very talented, that go to situations that aren't equipped to develop them, and then they flame out, and then they go somewhere else, and then they pop somewhere else that actually does have a supporting cast, and you're like, see, they always had it in them. They were just in a bad team. It's like, maybe we should build the bad team first. I've become more and more open to that as the years have gone on, but the one thought I have lingering in the back of my head is, God, Dillon Gabriel's just so bad. Like, so bad. Like, can we really sell it to the fans we're going to do this for another year? Probably not.
Quarterback is broken. When we talk about what's broken on the Browns, quarterback is broken. I think it needs to be addressed, and I'd advocate for starting fresh, which is incredibly difficult given Cleveland's situation. They'll probably have to move up to get their choice, which is even worse because it's not a deep quarterback draft, but I don't think you can't for exactly the reason you said. Dillon Gabriel, keep him as a backup. Shedeur, I would trade at this point. He doesn't believe he's a backup. I don't think he's going to be happy there. And sometimes you like that attitude in your players. Hey, do you want to be a backup? No, I don't want to be a backup. I want to be a starter. Cool. I like that fire, but I don't think it matches the reality of where he's at. And again, if they were going to do that, they would kind of do the New Orleans thing this year. They would bench Gabriel right now. They would put Sanders out there, much like the Saints have put Shuck out there, and be like, okay, Rattler or Shuck, Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders. Like, cool. But they're not doing that. And you can't afford to start that process up next year and have it not work. So I think they need a clean slate as much as they can. They got to jettison Watson, move on from Sanders. You can keep Gabriel as a backup, but that's it. So that means you need an option out there. In terms of the tackles, you need at least one, but I'm with you realistically two. It really depends on DeJuan Jones's health. And even when he was healthy, he wasn't like, oh, he's keeping me from drafting another tackle. He could be my third tackle, and I would be fine with that. But right now, he's arguably their first when he's healthy. And that's not good enough either. So you could use a youth infusion at guard. Their guards are getting long in the tooth. They're starting to allow pressure. They need an X or alpha wide receiver. Stop me if you've heard this. It sounds very familiar to what we just went through. Defense, they need nickel, outside corner, and strong side linebacker if you get that far down and find one you like. So in terms of priority, I'm with you. It's like, well, build the offensive line, get a quarterback. If you can get a quarterback in free agency, I would throw the draft and the rest of free agency after offensive line. Tackle, I'm just going to say tackle. Can be left tackle, can be right tackle. I'm not going to be picky. Get a QB somewhere, probably free agency, because trading up in this quarterback class, as thin as it is, when you already have limited resources and multiple needs, doesn't sound great. And then nickel and then wide receiver. Again, I'm looking at that list of needs and they're available, draft picks, cap space. I'm just like, I don't think it happens all in one off season. No matter, even if you got every move right, which we know they won't because no team does. I don't think you can fix it in 1 year. And it's a take it down to the studs kind of rebuild for me. Like, you can't just keep pushing along whatever you've had at quarterback and expect the rest of the team to roll up. I know Miles said, oh, they showed me their plan and I was cool with it. No, you weren't, Miles. They didn't really have a plan.
They showed me the contract and I was cool with it.
100%. No way you looked at whatever they have as a plan right now and went, yeah, I'm down with that. You looked at the zeros on the check and said, yeah, I'm down with that. And that's fine. I'm not going to begrudge him for that. But you really just have to get down to the foundation here and say, we're going to start over because this has sort of aged out and broken down to the point where I really don't feel like it's salvageable in a lot of spaces. There are places on this roster. Tight ends, fine. I think you have enough at running back, especially with Quinshon Judkins. I think you have backup wide receivers that are going to work pretty well. The defensive line, while it's not perfect, it does have some hitters on there outside of Miles. Got Malik Collins. You got other guys.
Dude, Malik Collins
He's
been
playing great
this year.
So you don't really need to go after, again, that's a very expensive position. Look, if you want another edge, they're rotating edges on the other side. They're getting production out of those guys. So with a team with this many needs, I'd be like, that's okay. It's functional. It's above water. Leave it. Don't mess with it.
Carson Schweschinger's worked out. The trade for Tyson Campbell was great. Like, defense is fine. It really is.
It's okay. It needs some depth, especially, I would say, in the secondary. But offense is the problem here, and it starts at the top. It starts with quarterback and offensive line. You can't build an offense out of a decent running back core and a good tight end core and nothing else. Like that, it doesn't work. It's not functional. So I would start there. Find a quarterback somewhere that is not currently on your roster. Again, if you can sign one in free agency for a year or two, that's cool. Draft offensive line, because that offensive line group, yes, again, injuries, but it has not been good even when it's been healthy.
I'm looking at free agent receivers in 2026. It is a wasteland. Like, it really is. Deebo Samuel, quote unquote, is the top one. It's going to be a free agent. Nope. Mike Evans, I think he's staying in Tampa until he dies. Nolan Christian Kirk, Jacoby Myers, again, good piece, but we're trying to find a one here. That's not how I would describe Jacoby Myers, as like super dependable number 2 extraordinaire. De'Ami Brown, Tutu Atwell, Hollywood Brown, Juwan Jennings, maybe. But again, I don't want to build the entire boat out of just Juwan Jennings. DeAndre Hopkins, no. Adam Thielen, no. Khalif Raymond, no. Jahan Dotson, no. Greg Dortch, again, is like a 3. Great. Rashid Shaheed, I don't think Seattle's going to trade for him just to let him walk out the door.
Nope.
Keenan Allen, Josh Reynolds, like, you're getting the picture here. Like, they're maybe George Pickens if they throw money at George Pickens, but then it's like, what money? Their projected cap space is negative 2.7 million before they do all their typical restructure extension stuff. But it's like, are they going to free up enough money for George Pickens and fixing everything else? So I don't know, man. It's tough. Tackle, receiver, and quarterback, all is like your 3 biggest needs, is not where you want to be in today's NFL with how much money those cost.
No, I would say 2026 is largely take your medicine year for the Browns. Like, get everything you can cleared off the books. I'm not sure about the particulars on the Watson contract. I realize he is, quote unquote, on the team this year.
Well, so sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Because of the insurance on that contract, last time I checked in, they're going to actually like get some relief on that because of the Achilles injury triggering the insurance on that deal, which is a common thing for teams to do on super high value contracts. So like, they are going to get cap relief. I can't get a straight answer on exactly how much cap relief, but in theory, if it's like the best case scenario on it, I believe it's going to make the dead cap hit palatable enough that potentially, maybe, possibly, they could get
so it's
out
like
of
Denver.
This
it's like Denver
maybe.
with Russ, and they can, again, if it works out in their favor, I would advocate for doing that. And I think about like what Ryan Poles did when he came into Chicago. He was absolutely ruthless. He paid not to have Nick Foles on the team because he was like, no, we are clearing the decks. We will be free of all of this next year. And it was rugged, but it also gave them the cleanest possible slate. And I realize the situations are a little bit different, especially with all the money. But if they can do it for culture, for just, hey, we are truly starting over. We're not carrying any of this forward. This is a hard reset. I think that has value, right? Not only for the team and the building, but also for the fans and anybody that might want to go there as a free agent, even if you're talking about third wave of free agency because they don't have a ton of money, but they're value guys. And right now, if you have a choice, do you go into Cleveland for any reason? And the answer is, nah, not really. And especially not for low money. You're just going there if you can get a job. But would you feel better about it if they said, no, we're We're getting rid of the old. We're starting off new. You could be part of building something. At least you'd have that to sell to people.
While we're on the topic, I have a question for you. Fire Stefanski or no?
This is hard. I think Stefanski's a good coach. I think he's been handed some not great beats, basically, by management and honestly personnel as well. I think you just have to go clean break, and I think Stefanski will have a job immediately, and I think he should. Coaching offense or a run game, either way, I'd be completely happy with that. But I just don't think you can carry this forward and say, oh, we're salvaging the good parts. And I'm like, which good parts outside of Miles? Like, what good parts are we salvaging here? And I really do think there is some value in saying, mea culpa, we screwed it up. We did a terrible quarterback contract, maybe the worst ever. Things have run their natural course here all the way up. Coach, GM, obviously the owner's not changing. We're just going to scrape the decks clear, start at the base. It's going to take a couple of years, but we're going to build from scratch, and hopefully we're going to build something with quality, because at least you can sell the hope. If you can't sell the hope, what are you selling? They don't have a ton of money. They're not going to buy free agents away from other people. It's not a great situation. You can't promise them wins or rings or anything else. And everybody there, including Stefanski, just seems a bit beat down by it all right now. And I don't blame them, but I also don't think that's a great selling point. Hey, come play for this haggard coach. Like, no, just
that's
give
what
them
I'm
a
thinking.
fresh
I'm
start.
thinking about the fans, right? Like, how do you sell that to the fans? Of like, okay, we're gonna do year 7 of this. It's like, please renew your season tickets. Come by for 8 Sundays.
In their defense, they are used to it. It's not a good thing, but
yeah, definitely not a good thing. That's why I advocate, I think, for just moving on from both him and Andrew Berry.
Correct.
Because my biggest worry, and we talked about it in the last show, how both rookie quarterbacks that got taken in the first round this year both had their coaches fired. And that's been a trend over the last few years of how many first round quarterbacks have had their coaches fired in their first year? Like 5 or 6?
If you're talking about
years?
Number 1 overall quarterback picks, the last 4 number 1 overall quarterback picks have all had their head coach fired either in season or after their first season. Nobody's made it more than a year.
I feel like if they do that, then like, why would I retain Stefanski and Berry if there is a fairly decent shot that they would get fired in the middle of their rookie quarterback's rookie season? Like, I would much rather do what you advocated for in that show on, I think we released it Wednesday, because we haven't released it as of recording this, so I'm assuming we're releasing it later today, which is Wednesday. But you advocated for, if you know you need a young quarterback, just bring in the coach at the same time, bring in the GM at the same time. Like, don't try to do these off-kilter timelines of coach, GM, and quarterback that are all not really brought in together. Like, just have a unified vision. Like, it's such a big force multiplier when the building is all united around something. Even if that something isn't like great, at least have unity, have an identity, have a plan, have people that agree on something. It feels like the Browns, as far as their internal structure, haven't agreed on anything in years. Like, everything's just felt so disjointed. Everything's felt so chaotic. Like, Browns fans can't even figure out who to blame for the Watson thing in the first place, whether it's Jimmy, whether it's Andrew, whether it's Kevin. Like, nobody knows who to blame anymore. So I'm just saying, if you can't get rid of the owner, get rid of everything else, at least, and start fresh again, because they owe it to the fans to start fresh. You cannot ask them to get excited in June for this, as it is presently constituted.
No, it is, as much as it pains me to say, it's Major League except the football version.
Yeah.
Like, go get a bunch of talent that other people have cast off and try and make something that works for 2026. When your clear goal is, we are just clearing the decks for 2027. We're going to do the best we can to build the base of a culture here. And honestly, it'll be a lot like, if they're lucky, it'll be a lot like the first year of Dan Campbell in Detroit. Now, recency bias. Everybody looks back at Dan Campbell and they go, "Oh, he's amazing. He was always going to work." No, literally, the owner of the Lions held a press conference. I think it was week 6 of his first year, and said, "No, we're standing by him." Like, it was, they were a bad team and he was trying to turn them around. It wasn't going to happen, and he needed his owner to go front and center and say, "Nah, he's not going anywhere. He's doing the right things. We like it. The results aren't there. Get off his back about it," basically. And it, if they're lucky, this is the terrible thing to say, but if Cleveland's lucky, that would be the best case scenario, is they get a solid coach and just say, "Look, give him a little time. Like, he's going to need it."
Before we get to our third team on the docket today, which is the New Orleans Saints, I do want to remind you guys, week 11 this week is the start of our season-long pick'em contest over on Underdog. So if you're already signed up on Underdog, go to the Google form in the link in the description below, as well as in the pinned comment below, and that'll allow you to put in your email and your Underdog username so that you can get tracked for this contest from week to week. We have weekly prize winners of $500 in Underdog credit, plus bootleg merch and mini helmets every single week. And then we also have season-long winners, where the top 10 for the entire season, they're all going to get merch and the mini helmets, etc. Top 3 are going to get full-size bootleg helmets, by the way. And the top 1 is also going to get one of the exclusive bottles from our barrel pick that we did with our partners over at Woodinville Whiskey. There's also a whole tiered prize structure as well. I think it's like $15,000 in Underdog credits is getting given out over the course of this contest. So if you're already playing on Underdog, make sure to get counted for this contest. You only have to do at least 10 individual picks every single week. Not 10 entries, just 10 picks. And there could be like 5 picks within an entry. So it's only a couple entries per week, which most of you are probably playing anyway. And this will just kind of help you win some contests on top of that. Or if you're not already on Underdog and you haven't been playing with us this season, again, if you go to that link in the description or at the QR code on the screen, use promo code BOOTLEG. If you play $5, you get $100 in credit as well. So thank you to Underdog for putting on this contest with us. Thank you to Woodinville for allowing us to do a barrel pick with you guys. It is excellent stuff. And good luck to everybody as the contest starts this week. On to the New Orleans Saints. Fresh off a victory, by the way. So their draft order actually fell, quote unquote, to start this week. They are now the second overall pick at 2-8. Tennessee stands alone at 1-8. There were some flashes this week from Tyler Shuck. We saw some Chris Olave splash plays come back for the first time in a while. There are still significant roster deficiencies here, but we saw some life, which was nice. We haven't seen very many signs of life at all from this team. So I guess I'll start with this. It's been a small sample so far. Mm-hmm. Do you think there is a world, based on what you've seen so far, where Tyler Shuck plays well enough that, let's say, New Orleans ends up with the first overall pick and they have their pick of Simpson, Mendoza, whoever, maybe even Sellers comes out, I don't know. Let's just say they had their pick of the litter for quarterback. Is there a world where they pass on all of them for Tyler Shuck?
There is a world, and QB is the big question in New Orleans, but again, the approach they're taking, I like it. They'd seen enough of Rattler. Rattler got some starts last year, a bunch of starts this year. They know what they have in Spencer Rattler. They needed to find out what they have in Tyler Shuck, and they're seeing that now. They will know if Shuck is worth running it back based on not only all the field film that they get this year, but also everything they see from him week to week in terms of improvement, how he is in the room, how he is on the sidelines, how he contributes to offensive game plans or just absorbs them. They'll understand whether or not that's worth running back. And if it's not, then they know. That's just, it's better to know than to not know. And this approach allows them to know about both of those guys, weigh them and say, is this enough to go into next year with? So when you look at what's broken with the Saints, again, Shuck's only been starting for a few weeks here, and the offense is third worst in points generated. This is for the entire season, so this is Rattler and Shuck fused together. Third worst in rush yards per attempt, seventh worst in pass yards per attempt. The silver lining is that they're middle of the pack in terms of sacks allowed per game. They're 17th, which is okay. You can live with that. They're not the worst. They're not the best, but they're certainly not in, say, Cleveland territory, which is good, or the Raiders territory. So the offensive line and the young pieces they've invested in there over the past couple of years, especially the tackles, are all right. Are they great? No. Can you live with it, even with a rookie starter? Yeah, you probably can. So once you figure out whether or not Shough is the way to go, or let's just say they have the top overall pick, or maybe they end up with the second overall pick. There's at least 2 quarterbacks in this draft. Do you, as New Orleans, then say, hey, we've got an answer in Shough. We've got a decent offensive line. Let's sell the number 2 pick for everything we can get for it for one of those quarterback desperate teams. And now we have ammunition to build around Shough and this young offensive line core that we've put together, because they do need other things. They need an upgraded guard, but you can get guards in the 3rd or 4th round. It's not super expensive. Again, they've already got the expensive pieces in tackle. Defense. You could use some more hitters at defensive end and edge. Linebacker and secondary are surprisingly solid. They're 23rd in points allowed, which is not great. 22nd in sacks generated per game. And again, if you make that second number better, if you get more pressure, the first number will get better as well. They'll allow less points. So there's some things to work with. And I could see the world where they say, hey, because quarterback's so expensive and risky, we'll take the one we know, the guy on our roster, and we'll continue to put pieces around him. And if that doesn't work, look, we'll still be bad. Maybe not bad enough is the conundrum. But then we can replace him the year after that when maybe there's more options at quarterback. I could see the wisdom of that. It's really going to come down to what the head coach says about, I'm comfortable with this and I feel good about the growth, or nah, we got to go a different direction because this is the bottleneck in our offense.
One of the things that we talked about quite a bit in the first 5-6 weeks of the season was how the Saints and the Jags were kind of polar opposites, right? Where the Jags get a lot of pressure, but they don't actually get the quarterback on the ground. They have like the lowest sack conversion rate in the entire league, even though their pressure rate is actually fairly high. Whereas the Saints weren't really affecting the quarterback that much and not getting a lot of pressure, but when they would get there, they would get him on the ground. Like their sack conversion rate for the entire year is 12th, but their pressure rate's 26th. So if you kind of put the Jags and the Saints together, you probably have the Broncos. But unfortunately, neither one of them is good at both things. To me, the Saints are a prime candidate for Rueben Bain. You know, if they get a top 5 pick, which they almost certainly will, in fact, they're probably going to get a top 3 pick, they would be the first team that I look at to be Rueben Bain's destination, because they desperately need somebody who can consistently get pressure, consistently impact the quarterback, and help out the rest of the pass rush by flushing that quarterback into everybody else. So I really want to see this defense be able to get the quarterback on the ground without blitzing, like without just throwing extra bodies in there to clean everything up. Like if they could get home with 4, which they would be able to with Rueben Bain, this defense immediately would be a lot better than they are, which ultimately would help out Tyler Shough or whatever young quarterback they have in there, because they're not going to have to go out there and have to answer points every single time, right? Like we saw that in the Patriots game this year. It felt like every time Spencer Rattler went out there, he had to answer some miraculous play that Drake May made. And it's like, God, can we give the kid a couple drives where he doesn't have to go out there and answer points, right? So I think defense is probably the way to go here, because they already took their 2 young tackles. So that's the other premium position you consider that high in the draft, but they already got that. So now I'm looking at either pass rusher or quarterback, and the best pass rusher in this draft is better than the 2 best quarterbacks in this draft. So if we're just going by pure BPA, Rueben Bain's probably the pick here.
Yeah, and if you're not going to stick and pick Rueben Bain, the other thing you've got going for you is probably 15-ish of the top 45 to 50 picks are going to be edge rushers in this draft. So maybe, again, you sell that high pick. You still get an edge you like. You get extra picks. Obviously, that's the first place I would go, then some guard help, but you can get that further on down and fill in around the edges after that. Maybe another explosive pass catching back. Kamara's not getting any younger. You need to replace deep speed. Shaheed was their guy for deep speed to take the top off defenses. Again, can you get a really speedy wide receiver in the 3rd round or 4th round, especially with extra picks? Yeah, you sure can. Maybe you even pick up an extra second, and there's somebody there you really like that can bring that element to your offense and help Tyler Shuck. So you would kind of get everything you wanted. You wouldn't get Bain necessarily, but you'd get a top edge because this is a very good edge rushing class. You'd get extra picks, and maybe you'd be competitive sooner. And that would be a very good thing if you're a Saints fan.
Right now, their projected picks in 2026, they have a 1, a 2, a 3, 2 4s, 2 5s, and a 6. And then in 2027, they have a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, and a 6, which is via the Chargers because of the Trevor Penning trade. I don't know where all their 6th and 7th round picks went, so they must have traded them for something, but they got a couple back because of Seattle and because of the Chargers, which is why they traded those guys in the first place, because they're staring down the barrel of a rebuild, and they were going into it with not a whole lot of picks before those 2 trades. Financially speaking, in classic Saints fashion, if you look at their projected cap space, they're $12.3 million in the hole, which actually by Saints standards, not that bad. And I think they're finally, as of 2026, I think they're finally going to be okay, because if you're looking at the 2027 cap numbers, it goes up to $146 million before restructures and everything like that. So like this is kind of the last offseason where they have to eat a little bit of shit before they can go back to eating ice cream in 2027. And they don't have to do a whole lot of work. But if they restructure Kamara, that saves them $8.1 million. They don't get a whole lot if they cut him. They don't get a whole lot if they trade him. So if they restructure, saves them about 8.1. If they restructure Chase Young, that saves them 10.8. Just those 2 moves by themselves gets them out of trouble, which if you compare that to the massive amounts of contractual work that they had to do in past years to get out of like $100 million in debt, doing restructures on 2 guys that they're probably going to have on the team next year anyway is totally fine. So cap-wise, they're going to be okay. They got more picks. They just have to decide if they like the pass rushers more than the quarterbacks or vice versa. Which, by the way, speaking of Ruben Bain, we talked about him as well as Arvell Reese, Spencer Fano, Caden Proctor, Jonah Coleman, I think was one of the other ones. And then Chris Bell, I think, were the 6 prospects that we talked about in that extra bonus patron episode last week on the Patreon. So if you're a patron, make sure to go watch that if you haven't already. And then this week, we're going to do another one. We're going to talk about 6 more prospects. So if you have any suggestions for those, feel free to leave those in the comments as well. One quick break, then we'll get right back to the show, I promise. I don't really know how else to say this, so I'm just going to come out with it. I think I'm becoming a Henley guy this season. I've never actually been a Henley guy before, mainly because I've never actually looked good in Henleys before, but I just got a couple from True Classics, which happens to be sponsoring today's show, and it's the first time I've actually felt like I pulled off a Henley. True Classics' entire business model is just making clothes that are cut to look good on normal guys. You don't have to be an Adonis to feel confident in what you wear. Lord knows I'm not. All their pieces fit where and how they should on normal bodies. The fabrics feel good and they don't break the bank. Beyond these Henleys, I also got joggers, I got polos, I got crew necks, I even picked up a hoodie. Like I just had a whole bunch of holes in my wardrobe because I have lost a little bit of weight over the last year. I've lost about 20 pounds, but I still got, 25 to go. But, in this kind of halfway point in my weight loss journey, I had to pick up a bunch of new clothes, and I got a shit ton of them from True Classics, and they all look and feel pretty good. So if you yourself are in need of some new clothes as well, or maybe somebody on your list that you're shopping for this holiday season, go check out the entire catalog over on trueclassics.com/bootleg. Again, that is trueclassics.com/bootleg. I'm sure if you check it out, you're going to find something you like. And once again, I want to thank True Classics for sponsoring today's show. With that, let's get back to it. Last team on the docket. I knew Tennessee was going to be bad. Didn't think it was going to be this bad. Like, this is historically, biblically awful, EJ. Like, this is one of the worst teams I've ever seen, to the point where, like, that 0-16 Browns team might beat this one. That's how bad they are. They've already fired their coach. Like, they fired him a long time ago. Like, it feels like a long time ago, even though it was only about a month ago. And I just look at everything on their roster, and I find very little that I really care about going forward. Obviously, I care about Cam Ward. I care about Jeffrey Simmons. There's not a whole lot else that I think should still be here long term, quite frankly. If you're looking at available cap space next year, $109 million, which reflects the lack of quality in the roster because they haven't paid anybody, because there's nobody good, at least very few players that are good. And that number is going to balloon from $109 million up to way, way more than that, because their cap savings, if they cut Calvin Ridley, is 13.7. If they cut L'Jarius Sneed, it's 11.9. Lloyd Cushenberry, 3.5. Tony Pollard, 7. Well, I'd probably keep Pollard, but still. Xavier Woods, $4 million. And again, like, they do have some guys that are nice pieces, but very little to build around. And I'd kind of just rather have the money at this point, because is Calvin Ridley going to save this team? No. Like, I'd rather have the 13.7 million. So, like, they could very easily have 140, 150 million in cap space this year, plus potentially the first overall pick, which means they're also going to have the top pick in rounds 2, rounds 3, round 4, round 5, round 6, round 7. Like, they could bring in a lot of very expensive and a lot of very highly drafted talent to try to turn this thing around. But their roster is in such a shit place, quite frankly, that I still don't think that will be enough. I still don't think that they're going to be competitive until at least 2027, and that's being optimistic.
Lots of work to do. If you look at this roster and you say, what's broken? The answer is almost everything. If you break down a football team, there are somewhere between 12 and 13 position groups overall. We're not even talking about special teams. Just if we're breaking down offense and defense, there's either 12 or 13 positional designations. Of those, I worked up the ones that I thought were just good/workable. Again, just can you get it done? Quarterback, offensive line outside of right tackle, defensive tackle only because you've got Simmons and Sweat, and then running back. And that's it. And that's not great or elite. That's just good workable. So out of 12 or 13 position groups, you have 4 that are like, we can basically get by with what we have. It's not that we have all the depth we need or anything else, but just as a starting roster. That's a lot of work to do on an NFL team. Now, you're going to have some money. Calvin Ridley, probably don't need him. Cushenberry, I would keep because he's a serviceable player and you're going to have to replace him. And if you do it in free agency, it's probably going to be more expensive. So let's not make any more holes than we already have, because we have 8 full position groups, not positions, position groups that don't have what they need to compete at an NFL level. And I'm with you. That's more work than I think you can do in one season. If I'm prioritizing this, I'd start with edge help because it's expensive and it's a good draft for it. So take advantage of that. And or outside cornerback help. Now, they don't need to pick a quarterback. They have Cam Ward. They are going to have the top pick. Can they sell that pick for more picks? Yes. Should they? Yes. I think Cam Ward can be functional with some pieces around him. He doesn't have those right now, so work on getting those. I would look at probably wide receiver in round 2 because A, the hit rates are better on round 2 wide receivers than they are on first round wide receivers. And I would do it again later on because there's nothing on this roster keeping you from doing that. And they could use the help, quite frankly. Got to get a right tackle in there somehow. Again, stabilize that line in front of your young quarterback. And yeah, revitalizing this roster.
Let me ask you this. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
So are we replacing J.C. Latham or are we replacing Dan Moore?
If you're looking at the stats and the word coming out of Tennessee, Latham.
Already? We're thinking? Like
Dude,
2 years and we've seen enough?
Dude, Simmons was calling him out this season. Personally, on the practice field. You, young buck, we need more from you. When your team leader, who Jeffrey Simmons is, who was there, one of the very few players on the Titans who's left, who was there during the good times and knows what it's like to win, calls out a top pick across from him and says, unless you do more, we're not going to win. Personally, on the practice field. This was not a side locker room conversation. This is in front of the entire team.
Yeah, not ideal.
Not great. So I'm saying Latham, sure. Can he be a third tackle, swing tackle? Yeah. Are you marching into, battle with him as the starter in front of your, again, number 1 overall pick at quarterback? I wouldn't that's a tough sell both for the team, for the fans who are paying attention, for whatever new coaching staff. If they're smart, they're going to look around at new coaches that have come in and say, hey, how did they have success? They're going to look at places where it was not good for a rookie quarterback in his first year, like Caleb in Chicago. What did they do? Oh, they went all in on offensive line. Yeah, we should make sure we're stable there. So I think that makes a ton of sense. It's going to take multiple years, and it's not just going to take multiple years of the draft or free agency. It's going to be every avenue the Titans have available to them. Free agency, the draft, UDFA, trades, practice squad poaching. Could you improve this roster right now with 5 players from practice squads around the NFL? Yep, you sure could.
Which is saying a lot.
Which is rugged, but you're there. So you have to use all of them if you want to accelerate. If you just do this through free agency and the draft, it might be 3 years, right? With hit rates, it might be 3 years. You're going to have to use every opportunity to scrape. Look at the release schedule when guys get, cut down day. There's so many players on very talented rosters who they are trying to stash who potentially could be starters for you. You're in that spot. Just acknowledge it, kind of, embrace the fact that you're the underdog right now and that you have all the advantages. You have the earliest picks in all the rounds of the draft. You have the first claims in waiver wire order. You have everything. Use it as much as you can before you lose it and rebuild this roster very, very quickly, because speaking of selling it to fans, we were talking about the fans in Cleveland. We know some Titans fans and they're over it. They are fully over it because this team was better and was mismanaged to get to this point. From a coaching standpoint, you look at the A.J. Brown trade, the fact that they thought they could just replace A.J. Brown with Treylon Burks, 1-for-1. It's an arrogant take. It's possible.
I don't know if they thought. One man thought, and the other man got him fired for it.
And the other man lost. Yeah. So they've seen the wrong choices lead them down the wrong path, and they are, the nicest way I can say it, is ready to see the right choices lead them back down the right path.
Underrated need for this team, by the way, is corner. This is the worst corner group in the NFL in terms of passer rating allowed in single coverage. So the Bears, which they've been injured, are third worst at 117.1, which we have seen every single Sunday. It's not been great. The Bills, who have had well-documented issues in the secondary this year, are second worst at 120.7. The Titans, passer rating allowed in single coverage is 133.2.
Dude,
absolutely awful.
118 is really bad. 130 is have at it. There's nobody out there. We're doing 7-on-7 drills against air, 7-on-5 drills, I guess.
17 yards per reception in single coverage. That's bombs away.
That's free.
Right?
That's free yards.
It's unbelievably bad. One of the only teams that are actually worse than them in terms of yards per reception. It's just they haven't given up as many, ironically, is Chicago at 18.3. So.
Yeah, no Jalen Johnson, no Kyler Gordon for most of the year. It
tends to happen.
It's going to be that way.
But I would definitely look at corner for them. Again, not where they're going to be picking, but top of round 2 if somebody falls. Top of round 2 tends to be an area where good receivers and good corners just happen to go. That's just always
sell that top pick, and you could have multiples in round 2, and then we're cooking with gas, right? Get the edge up high, whatever round 1 pick you trade down to, you're still going to have edges. We talked about that earlier in the pod, and then you get to round 2, and you can get a corner and a wide receiver. Now we're starting to build some momentum.
Now, back to the topic of J.C. Latham real quick. If we are adamant about replacing him at right tackle, I might consider a 2-for-1, which is actually moving him to right guard. Because a lot of people thought he was a guard anyway when he was coming out. And then you take the tackle, and potentially we all of a sudden we're fine. Because right guard, honestly, to me, right guard might actually, which is Zeitler, right guard might actually be the even bigger hole on the offensive line than right tackle in particular. So maybe we're just thinking right side in general. Try to do a 2-for-1 upgrade. Move J.C. Latham inside. Again, I would consider Spencer Fano then if they're picking in the top 5. Like, consider him there, or maybe do like a little baby trade down if somebody's coming up for a quarterback. You go down to like 6 or something like that because Fano's going to be there, and he's your new right tackle of the future. Latham at right guard. You know, we still got Skoronski. I guess we'll deal with Dan Moore, who's actually allowed twice as many pressures as J.C. Latham this year because he's Dan Moore. But I guess we can live with it. We'll figure that out in 2027. Or, hell, put Dan Moore inside at guard. Fuck it. Who cares? Like, I don't know. Just do something. Move one of them.
You're going to have the 5 guard offensive line. They're all guards. Nobody's a tackle. Nobody's a center. Just we're going to come
we
up.
We are formless. We are shapeless.
That's right. We're going to line up. Everybody rotate one spot to the right, each down. We're gonna do service academy bullshit over in Tennessee.
Oh God, the Borg offensive line in Nashville. Right. But I mean, got to do something. You got to do something to make Cam Ward's life easier.
I agree.
Like, obviously receiver is the bigger hole, but it's not like offensive line's been perfect. So pass rusher, corner, receiver, offensive line somewhere. I guess also linebacker. I guess also running back, tight end. All of it, for sure. All of it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, outside of Cam Ward, he's shown some flashes. It does remind me a lot of Drake May. Like, it's not going to be a great year for him overall, but I don't feel like Cam Ward can't play in the NFL, and I do feel that way about some rookie starters who we get to see.
It hasn't been fair to him.
No, not at all. And defensive tackle, like, if you got Simmons and Sweat, you're cooking with gas. Running back, is it great? No, it's not great, but Spears is coming back from injury this year. I think he's going to be even better next year. Pollard is serviceable. You've got 2 backs. Okay, how many other roster spots on this team can you look at and go, oh, we're 2 deep there? The answer is most of them aren't 1 deep. So you got to really sort of sprinkle around. Like you said, some on the defense, got to get some corner help. Probably 2. Again, got to get some outside wide receiver help. Edge is just such a resource in this draft. Plus, it's going to help your coverage. Like, there's a lot of needs. Can you fit them all in one draft, even with a trade down? Not with hit rates. Not with hit rates.
Yeah. Worst case scenario. This is going to sound stupid. Worst case scenario is they take Caleb Downs. Because it's like, great player, that does not help. Like, that is not helping anybody right now. Like, I get it, but don't.
Yeah, not up high. Again, if you trade down to, like, if the first rounder you get out of your trade down is, 20, and then you get whatever it is, 2 more first rounders because, again, you're trading the top pick overall. It's the most valuable pick in the NFL. And this year's round 1 is 20th and Caleb Downs is still there, which probably won't be, but if he is, sure, go for it because you're getting a good player. Neat. And you have a ton of other picks. You're going to get some second rounders. You're going to get some this, like, great. But yeah, I'm with you. Safety in the first round with all the crying needs on this roster. Yeah, great player, but you got to get needle movers, and picking a safety for this team is not going to be that.
Yeah. Like, if we're going to take a dessert before an entree, might as well be like Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon. Like, at least something that helps out Cam Ward. So,
yeah.
Again, they got a lot of work to do, but they got money and they got picks. They got to nail the head coach hire. Like, for they sure. Really do. Because every coach the Titans hire from now until the day Mike Vrabel retires is going to be compared to Mike Vrabel, who may well end up getting the first seed in the AFC in his first year in New England, who just had a top 4 pick last year. Like, New England was picking right next to you last year, and they're about to be a playoff team, potentially beating the Bills for the division. They're in contention for the first seed. They were right with you last year, and that's what Mike Vrabel did. So every head coach the Titans hire is going to be compared to that, so they got to nail this. I don't know who's out there that they can bring in that would be that kind of slam dunk. People were bringing up Lane Kiffin for this, and I'm like, I get it, but why would he?
I wouldn't if I was Lane, but honestly, whoever I'm going to bring in, if I'm on the hiring committee for the Titans, my very first question is, who's your offensive line coach going to be?
Well, that's the thing is they had a great one. It didn't seem to matter.
I know, but he didn't work his miracles for his kid. Like, it just didn't happen. And so I don't know why. Again, Callahan's reputation, as far as I'm concerned, is cemented because of everything he's done in the NFL over his decades in the league. But going forward, he's obviously not the answer. And my question is, how are you going to do for me what, Canales did by bringing his offensive line coach from Tampa Bay? And we saw, again, a lot of players that had been drafted fairly highly in Carolina start to play better. They can establish the run this year. Are they a great team? No, but they're better by far than they were last year. That's what you need to look back and see 2 years from now with Tennessee is, hey, some of those players that we put high draft picks in and a lot of dollars, quite frankly, are playing up to their potential. They're playing like solid NFL starters. Neat. And we've got a quarterback who is dynamic when the play breaks down. We've got something now. We've got him some targets 2 years on. We're in the middle of the pack offensively. We're scrappy. We're looking at a wild card. Like, that's what you need to see when you look back in 2 years. Is there any guarantee that's going to happen? No, they have to hit a lot of green lights. Has to start with a coach hire and go from there. They've got to do a good hit rate in the draft. They probably have to be 40% or better, which is above average. You got to use every other avenue you have because you're starting at literally the bottom. You didn't luck into the first overall pick. You earned it in the worst possible way. So start digging right now. It's a ways out, but that's the only way forward.
Well, I want to appreciate everybody for watching and listening, however you happen to be watching and listening today, especially if you're a patron, and also, even more especially, if you're a patron executive producer, Fitzy, Connor, Liam, Mike, Jack, Major, Owen, Spencer, and Consti is back as well. Thank you to all of our executive producers over on the Patreon. Thank you to all of our patrons that are enjoying the patron-only episodes. Again, this is the time of year we're going to be talking more about draft prospects over on the Patreon episodes because we can't talk about everybody during draft season. We don't have enough time to. So we're going to start early this year on the Patreon. So hope you guys enjoy those. And we'll probably be posting that either the same day this goes live or the day after this goes live over on the Patreon. Again, link down below. So thank you once again, and we'll see you next week. Actually, a little bit of editing magic here. We won't see you next week because I'm out of town. So we'll see you the week after that. Anyway, goodbye.